It's Margot and Mary Jean here from My Favorite Quilt Store. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good.
We got some fun little things to show here today.
Yeah, like Mary Jean and I never go to the grocery store together, and we're different kind of grocery shoppers.
We are. I order online.
And I go through the aisles. I like to see and pick out my own stuff, and I know that's really weird these days, but I just have always liked to pick out my own stuff.
I like somebody picking it out for me and me going, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm down here, put it in the back. Huh?
Yeah.
Then you only have to unload. But what I love about the grocery store is there are so many things in the grocery store you can use in quilting.
Inspiration.
That's right. It is a bunch of inspiration. So let's start with probably the first thing you use when you get your fabric. And a lot of people pre-wash their fabric. So I used to pre-wash all of my fabric, and then I've kind of gotten to where I don't any longer.
Well, I can tell you why.
Why?
You got too much fabric to pre-wash. That would be me.
So if you pre-wash and you do it by color, it's not as bad, but always I throw in at least one color catcher. And so this is made by Shout, and you get it on the laundry aisle, and it's a little sheet that looks like this when you throw it in the washing machine. And I throw mine in the dryer too.
I throw mine in the dryer too. Isn't it amazing how much dye is caught on
this piece of paper? I am always amazed.
I'm always amazed too.
Sometimes it looks pretty damn good.
It does. Like you need to save it.
Like you need to save it and
put
put it on the wall, but I try not to. So if I've made my quilt and it doesn't have pre-washed fabric in it, I throw in two.
I throw in two also.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I'm washing the quilt for the first time, I use two of them in there because it really catches a lot of the dye.
Yeah, and these aren't very expensive. It comes 24 in a pack.
Yep.
It's a couple $, but have you ever had the red bleed onto the white and you're like, what am I going to do?
Yes.
Well,
this is the color catcher helps prevent that.
The color catchers are great.
It's simply amazing to me though that it does that well.
Yeah, I don't know that a lot of people know about these. I didn't really even know about them until a few years ago. Maybe you're the one that told me about it.
That turned you on to those?
Yeah, but if you're washing quilts, this is always a good
always a good thing. Even if you're hand washing them, you can throw it in the bathtub or the washing thing. If you're hand washing something that you're not sure how it's gonna turn out, you can throw it in the wash tub too.
Yeah,
I've done that before where I put it in the wash tub. So
the
next item that's my favorite that I use the most often is the freezer paper.
Freezer paper?
Yes, the freezer paper. And I buy, when I was looking through it, so this one stays in my sewing room. And it's a nice long big box. And I actually had two when I cleaned out my sewing room.
I have two also.
Because I guess I couldn't find one time. Like, this is enough freezer paper really to last you a long time. But it has so many uses.
It really does.
So many uses. So what I like it for number one, is when sometimes I create a pattern or create something that you can't really rotary cut. You can draw it on the freezer paper and iron it to the top of the fabric, and you always draw on the non-shiny side. If you're using this paper, you always draw on the non-shiny side. But the first thing you do before you ever draw on your freezer paper is you make a little mark in the corner, wait about a minute and a half, and rub it. If any of it smears, you can't use that pen.
Really?
So, yes, because it will smear and it might get on your fabric. And so you don't want to use it. So I find that Sharpies work really, really well. And I use the fine tip Sharpie on some things, and sometimes I use the fatter Sharpie. But I use a Sharpie black pen a lot of times to do it because that one does not bleed or leak, even when you put the heat next to it.
I did not know that.
Well, because when you put heat on it, things react differently.
Correct.
And I don't use a pencil because unless I'm using a fine point mechanical pencil, because there's too much lead that gets on here, and then that gets on your hands and gets on things.
Correct.
So I don't use that. So the shiny side is what you always iron onto the fabric, and the paper side is what you're going to use. So if I'm making a pattern, I draw it exactly the way I want to see it, because you don't have to reverse it, because you're gonna lay it on the top of your fabric and iron it on the top of your fabric, not the back of your fabric. So you draw your shape, iron it onto the front of your fabric, and then cut around it. But let's say I'm using this for applique.
I've got a little tip somebody taught me about using freezer paper for applique. You want to hear it?
Let's hear it.
So, an applique, because I do a lot of applique. You do mostly fusible applique, and I do the traditional applique. I was told that you take your freezer paper and you slice off maybe 3 squares about the same size, and you put one square on top of the other square, shiny side to dull side, iron it, and then put the third one on, iron it, and it makes a thicker
Applique piece.
Well, so when you draw your applique on there, it's nice and thick.
Okay.
And I did not know this, but when you do applique, like traditional applique with freezer paper, you need to shrink the freezer paper by ironing it first. Did you know
Yes,
that?
I did know that because this does, and another part. There's another product I use quite a bit. That's a interfacing type product, and you have to iron it before you use it for the first time because it does shrink a little bit. So heat sometimes causes slight distortion. So I would always heat it first if you're going to heat it to put it on something.
Yeah, I thought that making it like 3 mils thick or 3 whatever's thick.
It wouldn't be the.
It was really really nice to do for the applique, and you can use it on the bottom by reversing it. If you do the applique where you starch, you flip it over, or you can use it on the top and do the needle turn applique.
Yep. So freezer paper is great for applique.
Freezer paper, I think every quilter needs to have that in their arsenal.
I think so too, because the other thing you can do is draw a shape on here and then iron it to the top of the fabric after the quilt's done and you're quilting, and then you can quilt around that shape. And I meant to bring, I will bring some pictures of this. So I did a Texas flag, and I did an armadillo,
yeah.
And the Alamo. So what I did was I traced the outline of the like armadillo and of the Alamo, and I first went around, ironed it to my got it placed on the quilt where I wanted to go, and did the big outline all the way around it, and then I took the picture and did the fills, in between for the outline.
I wonder
but
how you did that.
I really drew it on freezer paper first and did the outline, and I didn't cut it. I just went straight onto the freezer paper.
It tears.
And it tears. You have to use a little bit smaller stitch, but it tears. So you can use this on lots of different things. So you can also use this for paper piecing and not have to tear it off the back because you iron it as you go. So I'm going to do a demo on how to do paper piecing with freezer paper in a short while, and it's an eye-opening idea as a way to use freezer paper.
I'm not a good paper piecer, so I better watch it.
You might have to watch it because it's a lot of fun to use this. I had one of our cutters ask me to show him how to use freezer paper for paper piecing, so I said I should do a demo on that if someone wants to see it.
Absolutely. I got one more. You want to hear the
Okay,
last one?
let's hear it.
So when you're making a label and your fabric, you cut out your
stabilizer.
square of fabric, you iron this on the back as a stabilizer, and you can write on the fabric much neater and much cleaner. It also, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll make a label on my computer and print it off, and then take my fabric, iron freezer paper on the back, and put the 2 on the light box and just trace my labels. They always look better. I don't have great handwriting.
Yeah.
But this really is a great stabilizer if you need it for anything.
It is a great stabilizer. So if you have any other ideas on how you use freezer paper that we didn't cover, we'd love to hear about them, because we're just doing this and we're thinking of some things off the cuff that we use them for. So parchment paper, another one of my favorites to bake cookies on, and yours too, because you use it when you're baking cookies.
I'm a cookie queen.
She is. So I have one box. It's not a very big box. I have one box in the kitchen and one box just for the sewing room.
Me too.
And I have had to go and steal some from the sewing room to bake those cookies on because I don't want to wash all those cookie pans.
You need to go to Sam's.
So parchment paper is shiny on both sides.
Right.
And so I use this for my fusible applique all the time. It keeps my iron clean. So I tear off a piece and put it on top of my freezer paper applique, or my applique, and I iron on this so that none of the fusible gets onto my iron. Because I'm forever cleaning fusible off my iron.
Oh, me too.
because I'll forget. But this is so easy and handy to leave near your ironing board
Yeah.
to be able to cut yourself a piece and throw it out when you're done.
So did you know you could also do it the other way around?
Yes, you can put your applique on this and build your applique on the freezer paper.
Yeah.
Remove it, and then put it on a background.
Yeah. And also,
Someone's calling you.
also you can put your put the freezer paper, not the freezer paper, the
parchment
paper. Put your fusible, whatever you use. Well, put your fabric and then put your fusible on top, and then iron it. And when you peel the fabric off, the fusible stays on the parchment paper until it's cool, and then you can just kind of go like this.
Yep.
I think I've had the same piece of parchment paper in my little ironing thing for a long time.
I wad mine up, throw it away, and get a
Do
new piece
you?
every now and then. I
Not
do.
me.
I do. I don't use it often, but I mean, I don't have to. I don't keep a piece around sitting around it because it gets in the way.
Yeah.
So I figure it's inexpensive enough that I can always get.
I have a little slot to slip it in.
Oh, well, that's a
Of
good
course.
idea. That's a
The
great
grocery
idea.
store really has a lot of great ideas, don't they?
It does. And the last one that I have not used this for this, but I have a friend that uses it all the time. Janet uses this to stencil on quilting motifs, and you can press it and seal it to the top of the quilt like that, and it sticks. So you can again, anytime you're using any of these papers, you need to test the pencil or the pen on them first to see how it reacts with the item that you're writing on, because the last thing that you ever want to do is to heat it or to smudge it onto your piece,
fabric
your
or
fabric
your
or your
quilt,
quilt or something like that. So you can take these actually and stack them on top of each other, press them all on top of each other, quilt your design through here, and then peel them off one at a time and stick them to your quilt, and then go over it again. Or you can draw on it each individual time if you have different motifs that you want to do in different places.
Great idea.
So you can use this to draw on, press it onto your quilt, make it flat, and then quilt right on top of this. When you do that, you do need to make your quilting stitches pretty small because you're going to need to pull this off. So one of the not so great things to this is that you will have little pieces of this under the stitching that you're going to have to pull out with tweezers. So I have seen that people have not liked quilting through this because of the little pieces that remain under the stitching that you have to go ahead and pull out afterwards. But it beats a lot of other things.
It really does. I was going to say, it's kind of in the either or situation.
It is, because anytime you quilt over something and use it to put if you really want to make something like a piece, quilting motif that you just can't, that you want to be almost looking perfect, symmetrical, everything that's hard to freehand. This, you're going to have to draw it on something and lay it on top and quilt through it. So you're going to have something that you have to peel off or pick out of the quilting.
I'm going to confess to you, I've never used press and seal either, but I saw a lot of people who do wool applique.
Oh, yeah.
And they, like, if you want to write on, let's say, a black or a white background, let it snow, or, you know, Margot's the greatest. You can write it out on here, stick it onto your wool, and then stitch through it with your pearl cotton or your DMC floss or whatever you're using.
And then those holes there will make it perforated, and it will come out. You might have a few pieces that stick underneath it, but it's not going to be anything that's going to be...
With embroidery, hand embroidery or hand applique, or doing the buttonhole stitch, or even just doing a running stitch, it's big enough that it really does pull out pretty good. It's the little tiny stitches. So you have to kind of weigh that against.
And I've seen people using the freezer paper for shapes of wool applique also.
I have too, but the good thing about this versus the freezer paper is you can line this up a little better because it's see-through.
Because it's see-through. That's the difference between these items. This is relatively see-through, so it's easier to use.
Right.
Placement-wise, this one you can see a little through, but you can't see that much through it.
It's not too bad. If you're doing like if you're stacking all your pieces for a fusible applique, you can even just put it on top of your light box, put them all in, and then take it over. It works.
Yeah, it works pretty good.
I think you could figure it out.
And the thickest thing though is the freezer paper, because it is coated on one side. So it depends on how much of a reference point you need. This is still easy to kind of see through to place things, but by far this is the easiest thing that you can see through and get the most dimension through and know exactly where you're putting it and
Yeah.
where it goes. So
We should call this tips from the grocery store.
we did our grocery store hacks.
Grocery store hacks.
Things that you can use in your grocery store for quilting that help you in your everyday processes of quilting. So
If you have any more great ideas for us, you can email us or comment back on this, and we'll take a look at it.
yeah,
And
let
maybe
us know.
we'll use your idea next time.
That's right. We might. You never know, because we always are looking for new things and new ideas, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm the gadget girl, so you know.
That's right. She is the gadget girl. So anyway, we appreciate you watching us today, and we hope you have a great day. Signing off, Margot
Mary Jean.
from My Favorite Quilt Store. Hey, y'all have a great day sewing. See you later.